Here goes.
What's up, everybody?
Welcome back.
Welcome to Camp Divvy. I'm going to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy for a moment, I guess. I did see Guardians of the Galaxy yesterday, and I don't have a whole lot to say about it, so it'll be really brief. The last movie I saw by James Gunn was, of course, The Suicide Squad, which I greatly enjoyed. It was a lot of fun. And this one, I feel like it was missing a lot of the enthusiasm and creativity that was present in the first one, and somewhat in the second one too. It felt a little bit like James Gunn had moved on, which he had, because he was dipping his toes into the DC universe, which he was taking the helm of. So he's like in charge of the DC universe now, and he's totally out of Marvel. Yeah, so there were some awkward moments where he talked about being excited about getting into DC, and people from Disney were like literally publicly like, hey, you're not done with your job here first. And he's like, yeah, I know. Like, it was kind of weird like that. So,
man.
So, you know, I just felt I was definitely underwhelmed. I'd heard not a whole lot going into it, but I heard both ends of the spectrum. A couple of people had said briefly, like, I was literally crying, I was in tears, blah, blah, blah. And then briefly heard some like, yeah, it's boring. It's what you've come to expect from Marvel. It's trying to recreate the climax of Endgame. Not in the grand scale that Endgame had, but just in the emotional kind of tying the knots, tying off the loose ends and stuff.
Right.
I think it was meant to be very emotionally charged, and I didn't feel that, didn't transfer to me. But also gauging audience reaction, there was a lot of people in the theater. There were not a lot of laughs at all. There were a couple of chuckles. I don't think there was one audience laugh,
That's
so
bad.
that's saying something, I think, because I know I can have bad viewings and see something again later and be like, oh, that wasn't so bad. But I did notice that there were a lot of moments where they even put in the long pause for a laugh, and it's like, yeah, nobody's laughing. So when you and I were talking about this briefly last night after I saw it, it was like we ended up talking about all the funny moments in the first one. Like talking about this one turned into you being like, remember that scene in the first one when he's dancing and then this happens? And so
yeah, there's a lot of that watching the second one too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't see the third one yet, but I heard you and my kids describe it, and I thought of a new title to this movie.
Ooh.
Based on your descriptions.
Okay.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Sad Rocket.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because that's basically what everyone told me the most about was like Rocket was really sad. He was hurt. There was a lot of like torture scenes or almost alluding to torture. A bunch of times, and then like no torture, but just lots of like what's going on, and Sad Rocket. Yeah. So I mean that's kind of the gist of what I heard. I mean, it sounds like not the humor that they were hitting.
The humor wasn't there for sure. Also, Gamora really, really bothered me. It's pretty much there's nothing different between, is it Endgame? Yeah, it's Endgame when they first meet. He meets Gamora too from the past. And like nothing's really changed. He's still like awkwardly telling her like how we were in love and we had so much fun and this and that, and he's trying to just kind of like spark some interest. And she's like, I don't care. I don't know you. You don't even know me. And it's like, yeah, okay, all right. And that just happens multiple times again in this movie, again. And I don't know. So I won't spoil the ending of that, but it just didn't really do it for me. So, yeah, I don't know.
I can see that. Yeah, the multiverse thing is tiring.
Yeah, really quickly, because they haven't done much that was really interesting with it yet. It's all been kind of since Loki, I think the ending of Loki was like, oh my God, they just shattered the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then since then, they've been playing with the pieces. It's, I think, a good way to put it. But so, yeah, that's Marvel. That's Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's it. But yeah, so we're gonna be we're working on some stuff for the channel. We're gonna have some new things soon. And one of the things is we're going to call it the woke meter. I think we've discussed this before, right? We've talked about this on the channel.
Yeah, we mentioned this was coming soon, and we deliver.
Mm-hmm. Soon. But it'll basically be a while we observe the media landscape, we'll give it ratings, woke ratings. And this will come in handy for people who are trying to remove woke from their diet entirely. Some people are very sensitive to it.
Yep.
They have low woke tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
So I support low woke tolerance, and I am really annoyed by little messages and stuff. And I think I want to just share... We'll just be sharing our kind of recommendations. I think it comes in handy, especially for if maybe you're an adult and you have some movies are going to be like Guardians of the Galaxy. Some people might see Guardians. It wasn't woke. I didn't pick up on any woke stuff. Usually it's pretty explicit. I'm not really worried about the little things. For instance, one thing that we can point out really quickly as something that would make our woke meter go up is in the new Indiana Jones trailer, there's a line where Indiana's goddaughter is some kind of, I don't know, she's doing her adventure thing and he's tagging along, and there's a scene between Indiana and some Nazi and her, and Indiana's like, you stole it, and the Nazi's like, and then you stole it, and then Indiana's like, and then you stole it back, and then she's like, and then I stole it, and she shrugs and she's like, that's capitalism. And it's like, first of all, that's literally not what capitalism is. Second of all, that's how your woke meter goes up. That's how you tick up the woke meter. Just be like, oh, stealing stuff. Yeah, that's capitalism, right? And it's like, are you 12? Are you 12? Like, adults wrote this. And it's childish and it's annoying. And a growing number of people don't want to give money to people who write woke garbage. So
yeah, it's very deliberate too. There's like woke concepts that can exist in like other movies and not be like the same kind of effect in a concept. But it's the intention. These people are deliberately, changing how movies are today.
Yes. Yeah, and it does have huge impacts on young audiences. Huge.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really frustrating for people to ignore that or to say that it doesn't. Because, part of their worldview is that the way things are, the way people behave, it's all social, and it's all about environment, and it's all your upbringing, and so it's all social enforcements on your behavior. So if you change the social input, your behavior output changes. That's the whole idea. So you say, so that's their worldview. It's very explicit. I don't believe in that. That's ludicrous. It's clearly not the case. Last I heard, general agreement in a debate between a neuroscientist and a psychologist, neuroscientist named Sam Harris and a world-renowned psychologist named Jordan Peterson. They agreed on the debate stage that it still seemed to be about 50-50 nature versus nurture. And that seems about right. That's pretty logical. I wouldn't be so surprised if in the future they were like, it's a little bit more, it's like 65-35 one way or another. That wouldn't be that surprising. But the leftist woke worldview is you are 100% a product of your surroundings and social input. So, my point is that it's really annoying for those same people to be like, oh, those messages we put in the movies that all the kids are watching, like, yeah, it's not really that big of a deal. It's like, well, from your worldview, it's kind of a big deal. Like, I think it's kind of a big deal to let, young people are going to be seeing Indiana Jones with their parents who are like oblivious and won't make the correction. Like, it's kind of crazy to have young adults just taking in this message that capitalism equals theft. And it's just, so it's actually, this happened before we were talking about the woke meter, or maybe around the same time we started talking about the woke meter, that there was a conversation going on about what woke meant. And I found it really interesting. I was checking in on it. It probably went on for a good couple of weeks, and it started somewhere, started working its way through the streamers, and then some national publications took up the like opportunity. The mantle. Yep. They picked up the mantle to put in their 2 cents about what woke meant. And so we could check out, it's a little 2-minute, 12-second video.
Yeah, I'm interested. Let's see.
So what do they think woke means here? I just got to route my audio through here real quick.
This guy's looking sharp, though. He's got his hair parted really well today.
Vice President Mike
Pence. We will never let
Pence.
the woke left take it away.
Is because they're putting woke ideology
to a woke mob that can't even tell you what a woman is.
So they opened with a couple of clips of Republicans talking about woke. And the idea is that it's just something, it was co-opted by Republicans and conservatives to just kind of trash lefties and be like, oh, they're woke, and it's just derogative and there's no meaning to it. I'm sure the people who put this video together would say that they don't know what woke means, and they're just using it as basically like a political slur.
Jeez. That's not what I was expecting.
This is such a regular part of the English language that it would seem that the obvious connotations would to be a conscious. And so, in a way, that should be the first thing that people think of, right? Because that is what it is meant for so long. That is how it's been used.
Isn't that deep? She's like, woke means to be conscious. And that's what they mean. And that's what it's meant for so long. Not meaning politically, but just meaning like to be woke means to be like conscious and aware. And so already it's like, you already made a huge leap, because she's not saying like woke. Usually when people say I am woke, they mean they are not sleeping. That would be step one. But she just jumped to like, we're enlightened, just like out of the gate without, that's the ground level.
In recent years, racial conservatives have co-opted the word woke for their own purposes. So what we're seeing
to make fun of you
in the state of Florida with anti-woke legislation, stop woke legislation, is to be a counter to these calls towards racial justice.
Right. So this guy on stage with DeSantis is Chris Rufo. He's awesome. I like him. He's definitely anti-woke. He does things like gets legal representation for mothers and fathers who are being sued by like parent-teacher associations and stuff like that for like reading out pornographic materials that's in the library and stuff. Because like parents will go to PTA meetings and be like, you guys got to hear this crazy thing that's in your library, and they'll read it and they'll cut the mic off and be like, that's inappropriate. This is being shown on television. And the parents are like, this is in the library. If I can't read it for like Channel 2 live streams, why can this be in the library? And they're just like, we'll sue you. We're going to sue you. That's happened a bunch of times. So parents getting sued.
That is crazy.
So that's what that guy does. He does some other stuff too, but I know that's how I know him as is he helps those parents out from not being sued.
I've seen a couple of those stories that would really piss me off.
Yeah, isn't that absurd?
Yeah, I mean, the library in a school is like a place for children's books and like books that are introductory to like the world in a really specific kind of way to like match up with where they are.
I remember there being different levels too, where I couldn't get certain books when I was in middle school that were accessible to high school students.
Yep. For sure. But,
you know, a big part of what's being misunderstood in all of this as well, on top of everything, is like their view, the leftist view, is parents have failed in educating their children on certain topics, so now it's the state's responsibility to do this. And so that's the steelman argument for them, is like, we can't leave this for the parents to take on and talk with their kids about, so teachers have to do it.
Yeah, only like totally crackpot people think that, though. That's fucking nuts.
I definitely agree that there are parents like failing in educating their kids, and a lot of parents do completely rely on the state to do that. But the solution isn't to give the state the right to show. So, like, we
parents need to step up.
Exactly. That's the solution, is to tell parents to step up. Right.
Yeah.
And like, we can get into some of these books at another time, but it's not like the penis goes in the vagina. It's like, make sure you lube up the dildo first before you put it in your butt, 8-year-old boy. And it's like, it's definitely lots of stuff about anal, lots of stuff about BDSM, and lots of, I mean, the stuff is really, really, like, when you're watching the videos of the parents reading it, it is really like, oh, this is really awkward. Like, I wouldn't want to be there either if I were on that council. Like,
yeah, that's her point. That's beautiful. Good for her.
Yep. So what else did she say here?
Is to be a counter to these calls towards racial justice, right? And so
being against woke is being against racial justice. Like, she's supposed to be defining terms, and we're gonna be very what's the word? We're gonna have a lot of intent in like defining things as we go. Because it's something that's been a problem, I think, in my mind with doing these movie reviews, is like, I've said things without defining any terms and without a lot of context. So in the future, I would like to go a little bit slower and to be like, why is this? Why do I feel the way I do about this one thing? Because out of context, it might just sound like, honestly, like kind of belligerent to be like, you know, the state of New York is indoctrinating children into like kink. It's like, I think that's technically true, but I can't just say that. It's just not fair. I don't expect people who don't already agree with that to just be like, oh, wow, really? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have to be careful arguments. That's what I'm thinking. So my point is, this lady is supposed to be making an argument for USA Today, almost 3 million subscribers. She's supposed to be making an argument for woke, and she's just making statements that people will agree with without knowing what the terms are. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's just like, it's problematic, as they would say. I think it's problematic. So to say something like Ron DeSantis is against woke and all of his anti-woke stuff is against racial justice, like, that means it could mean many, many different things. You have to define your terms before you say something like that, but.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got these people here with the sides.
She's also searching so hard for her words. Like, it's hard for her to express like the multiple angles she's trying to project at once.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of. So I don't know for her. I don't know her at all. But for most of these people, it's either they're really super kind-hearted and well-intentioned, and they're just like, they believe that there's a certain route that they're taking to make the world a better place. As this sign is saying, a better world is possible. There's so much to that sign. We could talk about this sign for an hour, because to be a 20-something-year-old who doesn't, like, maybe this girl's 21, 22 years old, doesn't really understand anything, and believes that a better world is possible and that they know how to get there. That's super dangerous. It just is. There's a lot of ways that can go wrong if that's just how you're viewing the world. But yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think a lot of the problem with people like this is that they think things need to be simpler and we need to, get rid of the corporations and the governments and all of this stuff. But it's because their understanding of all these things is so simple.
It's so simple.
They're just not understanding that their mindset is unrealistic. Their ideal world doesn't really work the way that they think it would.
No, I think their ideal world would be a hellhole. And that has nothing to do with racial equality. And that's the whole trap. The whole race thing is just basically a trap.
Sure.
Not to talk about it because we have to talk about it now, but what I mean is the idea that their whole movement is to help out black people is so absurd to me. It's so crazy and obviously false. You're obviously making their lives so much worse, and you've made the Western world. You've brought back racism in a way that we didn't know was possible.
Right. I would have never believed that the state of the world right now was possible in the late 90s, early 2000s coming through school.
No.
I would have never believed this.
So that's a good point to jump over to this, actually. This happened last Thursday. A viral video appears to show a white woman trying to take a bike from a young black man, sparking outrage over racism and weaponized tears. So what happened was there was a video. The link here is not working anymore. This page does not exist. So, because some more information came out, but when this article was published about the video shows a strange interaction. It's 40 seconds long. I couldn't find it a couple minutes before we were getting on, but it's basically just this woman is getting a city bike out. She appears to have rented it. There's a black man with her who appears to have also rented it. They're both saying they rented it out. Apparently how this works is you just have the bike in the thing, and then you order it with your phone, and it's got a code on it. You put it in, and it's attached to your account. If somebody else takes a bike that is attached to your account and is to lose it, in this city, somebody said that it would cost $1,300 to replace. So you can't just let somebody take it. What you have to do is put it back into its slot, and it resets the bike, and then you re-rent it out. It doesn't cost anything if you hadn't ridden it. So that would have been a simple fix, but they don't do that. This woman is situated over the bike. She's kind of on the bike already, and this black guy who's with 4 other black guys. So we'll say there's 5 men around a 6-month pregnant nurse who just got out of work. She's been working, I don't know, the last 82 hours straight or something. So she's a little bit out of it. There's accusations that she was drunk, which there's no reason to think. She starts crying because the guy tells her that her baby's going to come out retarded, and they start saying this stuff to her, and this guy comes over and tries to help, and she steps away. So the reaction to this video was a white woman tried taking the bike away from a black guy, and when she was called out, she started crying, and that they were weaponized tears. So a video viewed millions of times show...
What a term.
Dude, right? Right? That's what I'm saying. Weaponized tears. Millions of times shows a white woman apparently trying to take rental bike from a black man. Notice this. White is not capitalized, but black is. This is how you write now. That's just APA standard. The clip shows the woman screaming out loudly for help. That's how the video starts. She's yelling for help in New York City and appearing to cry. The clip sparked outrage with people accusing the woman, an NYC hospital worker, of weaponizing her tears. And it's just talking about this oh, you know how they are with their weaponized tears. It's the second time they've mentioned weaponizing tears, and it's such a strange view.
I mean, that term is so out of place in this story.
Right? Isn't it strange?
Jesus, that's like what you would say about someone who's crying rape and they're like,
Yeah,
they're lying.
that's a good point. That's a good point.
That's like a term you would hear then, but this is like, dude, we're talking about a scooter.
Yeah,
She's
right.
not weaponizing anything.
So before we go on, you and I and most people, if they were in this situation and they were confronted by this woman, they would have let the bike go. They would have been like, okay, obviously pregnant woman who just got out of work. Let's put the bike back in its spot, which it's inches away from, and we'll reset the bike, and then you can take it, and I'll take another bike. That's what most people would do. But this group of men, they don't do that. They decide to fight her over it. But, so the accusation is it's his bike and it's not hers, so he shouldn't just let her take it. And, all right, so that's fair. So says the unidentified woman, she's been identified since this was written, that's for sure. She was doxxed, who wore NYC Health plus hospital scrubs and appeared to start crying after repeatedly screaming out loud for help, has been accused of weaponizing her tears. They say it again. That's crazy. Some have condemned as racist. The 1 minute and 30-second video shared on Twitter by user begins with the woman yelling out, "Help me, help me, help me," as she grips handlebars of a city bike that it is also being held by a young black man. "This is not your bike," the man and his pals tell the woman as they stand by the city bike docking station in Manhattan. "Please help me, please get off of me," the woman again loudly screams. Moments later, the apparently pregnant woman tells the man, get off of me, "You are hurting my fetus," as they both continue to hold onto the bike. The man doesn't appear to touch her despite her shouts. Just as a... I'm sorry, but like, what? Just as a man wearing hospital scrubs intervenes in the situation, the woman abruptly appeared to start crying, and the black man's friends accuse her of faking her tears, the footage shows. I think this was when the guy says, "Your baby's coming out retarded." "This is my bike. It's on my account. Please move," the black man told the woman. The man's friend who was recording the video also told the woman to stop fake crying. So I'll just sum up what happened. So basically she's on like administrative leave. The hospital is reviewing the incident. They put out some statement. Citi Bike put out a statement. There have been multiple statements put out about how we can't stand for racism, blah, blah, blah. Somebody, was it from Citi Bike or the hospital? Somebody sent a letter to the mayor to be like, you gotta, like, literally, you gotta make sure this woman gets in a bunch of trouble for this. Because the accusation is that her crying out for help is an attempt to get him killed. That's explicitly what has been said since this happened. I've seen multiple people say it. They're saying white women in New York City know that if they call the police on a black man, the likelihood of him being shot by the police is so high that it should be seen as an attempt to have him murdered.
Jesus Christ.
So they live in, this is a fantasy realm that these people live in.
This guy's literally got a shirt on that says childish.
Oh my God. I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that.
Literally,
wow.
He just won't let go of the bike. Like you said, you would just let go of the bike. I would just let go of this bike. For sure. Like he's basically taunting her.
Most people would.
As much as her reaction does sound like excessive, it's like she's being provoked. It's like my two kids. This is very childish, and this is like my two kids. Like, this is like when Xander and Lucia are fighting about something and they won't let go of a toy that they both want to use. One of them was already holding it. The other one comes over, says, "That's actually mine," grabs it, and now they won't let go. And they won't let go, and they're yelling at each other until mom or dad comes over and tells them, like, "You're being bad. Neither of you get it. Bad."
Right? Yeah, neither of you get it. Right. Yeah.
Shame on you.
But yeah, and you're talking about like 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, like, yeah, right. So it is like a bad social move in general. But I think most people would let the 6-month pregnant lady take it, right? She's being called the Citi Bike Karen. That's what they're calling her. Karen is a racial slur, but people defend it in the same way they defended the N-word 40 years ago. So good luck, people, with that one. But all right, so I'll wrap it up. There's only one more piece of information needed to wrap up
still have
this
time.
little story.
He said 3:30.
Okay, perfect. Do you know what's the one one piece of information missing from this story at this point, in the messy way I've been telling it. We got two people fighting over a bike.
What
they're
do
both
all the other dudes
They're
look
both
like?
saying, oh, they're all black too, but they're both saying they rented the bike. And Citi Bike, it's all digital. So since last Thursday, we have found out whose bike it was.
Oh man, I would put money on it's the white ladies.
It was Citi Bike Karen's bike.
Yeah.
She's on administrative leave. So one of the things she was basically ambushed by 5 young men
We're trying to steal
who
her scooter.
filmed her as they took a scooter from her they must have watched her rent it, and she was starting to back it out. Like, this whole event takes place right in front of the spot you rent them out of. It's so absurd to me that this was last Thursday. This is like this. I just found out about this last night. I didn't know this happened, and this is just like all the time.
Dude.
And the whole reaction to, first of all, you shouldn't. If we watched the original video, as I did. So the first thing I see is the original video, right? And at the end of the video, I had no strong feelings about the situation. I honestly didn't, because I was like, I don't have enough information to have an opinion on this. I don't know who took out the bike. That's like the critical piece of information here. Who took out the bike? And I didn't know. So if the guy had taken it out and that was his bike and she came over and tried taking it from him, I would still say that you should let her take the bike, because that's just like, that's what I would do. I would say, look, let's reset it and you can take it. But I wouldn't have filmed her and all that stuff. But regardless, it would have been more understandable. Even if she had done that, the whole weaponized tears thing and like the whole way it's all presented is just so crooked. It's so weird.
When did they start capitalizing black and black man?
I think it's only been the last couple of years. Honestly, it might have been. I think it was cemented after George Floyd. I know it was happening, but I think after George Floyd, it was just like that's how it is now. That's how it is.
Wild. That's like a whole new grammar thing I was unaware of.
Yeah,
That's wild.
it's basically what you're supposed to do. I have to go turn the AC off for a second, but the puppy's like asleep under the chair.
Yeah,
I can't roll it.
Time.
I can't roll it. Oh, there we go. I snuck out. All right, let's
So if we had a woke meter set up right now for this thing that we're looking at, it would be off the charts.
That's off the charts. This is off the charts.
Yeah.
This is
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. So they even mentioned. I'm gonna go hit this AC real quick. Let me play this for another couple seconds.
It's really telling that a word and a term that has been couched in African American black culture and politics for well over 100 years.
It's okay, Pop.
Is being
years?
turned on its head to be framed
100
as something
years?
that there needs to be anti-legislation to shut it down.
Yes. I'm so in support of it. It's crazy. I want it all restricted. I want anyone who's been teaching. Like, I know we have like a teacher problem. There's not like a billion teachers waiting in the lounge for a chance to teach, but like, I want them all fired. I think it's evil to tell an 8-year-old child that they hate their black classmates and friends, even though they don't feel it or think they do, they actually do. And that even though they're just as poor as their classmates, that they are they're still living off of the fruits of slavers from generations and generations ago. I think that's evil, and I think they should all be fired. But that's just me.
Let's put a little bit of the budget. We'll take some of the budget from that UFO stuff they're doing, and we'll put it right into the...
They have plenty of money. We can take some of that.
Yeah, no. I mean, they call it defense budget, but, you know...
Defense budget.
Which is not to be confused
the word
with
woke
the fence or
does
the
not mean
the southern
anti-anything.
border. That's a
The
different
word
thing.
does not mean anti-white.
We need like 4 miles of fence to make all of this illegal. That's all we need. 4 miles worth of fence money. I don't know. That was way more useless than I remembered it being. I saw that. That was probably like a week ago. I watched that. But the point is that I had a dream about somebody was asking me to like identify or to describe a sports game to them. They hadn't seen. Let's say it was soccer. I don't remember what game it was, but it might have been soccer or basketball or something. And I was watching it with somebody who had never seen it before. And they were like, what is this game? Like, what is happening? I'm like, okay, so you got the soccer ball. You see the 2 nets on either side? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, so you got these 2 people in the 2 different jerseys. That they're on 2 different teams. That team's got to push it all the way to that goal. They have to kick it in there. They can't touch it with their hands. And then the person cuts me off and is like, balls, like every sports game has balls. Like, this is no different than any other sports game. And I'm like, no, it is. It's soccer. It's a very particular game. It has a ball, but it's a different kind of ball. It's not like a football. It's not like a basketball. It's a different ball. And the goal is different. The goalie has different abilities. And they're just like, oh, well, yeah. So it's like it's like baseball where the person has to run. It's just like running and making a home run, except you just kick it into the goalie. And you're like, no, it's not like that at all. And it just devolved. And that was the dream. It just devolved. And the person's frustration was that I was using terms that had been used for other things. And my point is, with the woke thing, people start using terms to define woke, and people who are not. So if I'm talking to a leftist and they ask me what woke means, there is no way I can define woke that they're going to be super happy with. Because as soon as I start using terms that they're familiar with, they'll think I've like perverted it, or I don't understand the terms like they do. So like when I say woke is not about racial justice, it's actually about the racial aspects of it it's just for social tensions, because you need incredible social tensions to make leftist political changes. And so when I say racial equality or something like that, they don't think I mean it the same way they do. So my point is, I think it's hard to define woke because people understand this. They know that the people who they would like to define it to differently than they've heard it will have a knee-jerk reaction against their definition. I would simply define it. It's very simple. I would define woke as the acting out of leftist ideology. And, my story about the dream and the person asking me about the game is like, I understand that when people hear that definition, they're like, oh yeah, leftist ideology. Like, sure. Okay. And it's like, I know, you know what I mean? I know what that means. I know what that means. And we will talk about it more, but it's just like, that's where you start. You have to start somewhere. And woke to me is when somebody is behaving in a way that they're acting out a leftist ideology, because people act out ideologies. It's a behavior. So it's very simple to me. And it's very easy to identify, and most people can identify it. They know what it is, and whether they like it or not. This is that old, when there was some Supreme Court case about porn, and somebody asked if they could define porn, and the person said, you know it when you see it. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of like woke. Like, you know it when you see it. When you see in the Indiana Jones trailer, some girl is like, oh, capitalism, it's like being stealing stuff, right? It's like, that's woke. I know it when I see it. But
yeah, I would say also, like, that's like the basic category of maybe the ideas that are putting together that group. But I think that a lot of people also fall behind it who just fall prey to the victim mentality. Because there's a lot of people who are a part of the woke movement who don't necessarily have a lot of these concepts thought through at all, but the victim mentality is very appealing, and that's a big part of It's a big part of that movement.
100%. Yeah, no, that's so true. That's so true. That is a big part of it. We were talking yesterday about how the victim mentality is so destructive in so many ways. And one of the things that came up, I never thought of this before until we were talking about it, was so when you have, and I had thought of this to some degree, but then it kind of went a little bit further as we were talking about it. But when you have we can't say the word, when you have a grape victim, that's what some people say. It sounds kind of silly and kind of demeaning. I don't know if I like that. Maybe I'll just say it. When you have a rape victim, have to go through the extra trauma of filing the report and having the test done and doing all the stuff that happens when you're filing a police report for something like that. All of that is talked about more often than not. I've seen it talked about many times. Many people, they just talk about it like it's a failure of the system. And that's always confused me. And I couldn't really put my finger on it. But I think it's because people, they rightly see it as it's obviously part of the trauma, like going through that whole process. It's really invasive and awful. But it's clearly to me, it's a further trauma perpetrated by the rapist, not the system. Like the system isn't responsible for how uncomfortable and awful the process is. The system is trying to fix something that went wrong. And the system is trying to hold the rapist accountable for what they did. And in order to do that, they have to put the woman through something awful. And the way you can talk about this to women is victimhood mentality, which is like, oh, well, of course, honestly, it was very recent. I saw somebody arguing against women going through that process and talking about how they were excusing just women who don't do that and just saying, well, like, of course they don't, because they don't trust the system. They don't think the system's going to do anything about it, and they don't want to go through the further trauma. And it's like, that's just not how you're supposed to, that's not how you talk about it. You talk about it by empowering the woman to do the right thing. Because a lot of times what women say in like big stories that come out with serial rapists is that obviously if they had gone to the police when it happened to them, it wouldn't have gone on for years and years more. Mm-hmm. So,
you know, it's a terrible situation to be in, but it is an obligation at that point.
It's a social obligation to other women. 100%. And just, yeah, right. 100%. And to be super clear, it's further harms done by the rapist, right, not the system. The system isn't at fault for this situation.
Right. I mean, right now they're trying to make it as, pain-free as possible, but it's like they can only do so much,
of course,
with the resources available to them.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's an unpleasant experience, I've heard, but at the same time, I'm sure it was worse 30 years ago or 50 years ago, and it's only getting better.
I hope so. I would think so. Yeah. And so that's just one example, and it just came up because it was something we were talking about recently. But there's a lot of ways that enforcing victim mentality is harmful to individuals and society as a whole, unfortunately. Jordan Neely was another thing that happened recently that was off the charts woke. Basically a guy with two others who were not white guy with two other not white people tried stopping a guy who was threatening a bunch of people on a train with violence, and he said things like, I don't care if I died, which then the press rehashed as he had little to live for. He said he had little to live for. He's like, no, that's not what he said. He said he doesn't care if he dies. He said he doesn't care if he goes back to Rikers, which is different than the whole presentation was he came onto the train and was just like, I need water. I need food. I have so little to live for. And some guy was like, come over here, black guy, and put him in a chokehold. And the way they talked about it was so absurd. I mean, just he had 10 years of serious mental health failings. So this was another event that went super woke. But this is my
off the charts.
Off the charts. This is my thing with all this stuff. It's really hard to talk about briefly because there's a lot to this story. You could easily talk about it for many hours. So
but it's happening. This is the stuff that's going on right now, and this is the flavor that they're serving us with this news.
The flavors.
It used to be more of a vanilla. It's definitely more of a chocolate now. I'm just kidding. But you know what I'm saying? There's like a definite...
Vanilla is lowercase v. Chocolate is capital C.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just such a time, man. And like the most intelligent people on every side of these topics are just like trying to explain it to everyone. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone is getting so caught up in the emotional effects, the victimhood, and also just like the shock of like some of the way that they report the stories. It can really draw people into something that's not even really being presented right at all. But they're so good at bringing people into it, though.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I maybe I don't want to know how many people are they're just going with the flow. They're just going with the flow. A lot of people, you're right, though, that a lot of people are taking up the opportunity to explain this to whatever audience they have. And so many of them are just so bad at it. They're so bad at it. They're really bad faith. They're looking at it like this woman with the Citi Bike, that whole situation. Like, I watched 4 little takes on it from different streamers. And they're just like, can you believe this white bitch did this? She tried to have that man killed. And it's like, it's just...
that's wild, man. That's dangerous. That's like the worst part about this story is that like, it's another story of someone like, she wasn't doing the wrong thing. That was her own scooter. And she was trying to call for help when someone was trying to take it from her, a group of men. And then she's being punished for it. And not only that, but her reputation is being assassinated.
Her reputation is... I'm sorry, but that's how it goes. Like, it's done. There's a bunch of people in her life that there's no way she could explain this to them at this point. There's a lot of people in her life that it's already done. So it's like, yeah, you're... People who excuse this stuff too, like maybe somebody who made it this far in this video who doesn't agree with us and thinks we're bonkers, who are like, oh, your reputation, like it's that big of a deal. It's like, man, that's my problem with leftists. I think the hardcore leftists are just so...
It's like cold.
They're so cold. Like, we can't open up another can of worms at this point, but like your reputation means nothing to them. Your safety means nothing to them. I saw takes on this train situation that happened the other week, the Jordan Neely situation. People are saying, and these are very popular commentators saying, leftist commentators saying, your safety, your feeling of safety is bourgeois, and that you putting your feelings of safety over the life of the person who's threatening your life is racist. And
that's so wild.
Yeah. So
troubling times. Well, we're here to spread things out and show you what's really inside.
Yeah. We're spreading it out like this guy was just spreading some seeds for the birds, it looked like, or something.
I saw that.
Yeah.
He was laying down a little feed. He's setting up his cam.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. But so we'll have that woke meter soon. We'll talk about some more stuff. We'll do some more things in the future when you need them. Next time we'll be back around. I'm talking like my neighbor Billy talks like that. He like start to understand what he's saying, and he's going to bean and then bow. And then he like laughs, and you're like, ha 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 ha. Yeah.
And you laugh with them, don't you?
And you just laugh. Yeah, right. I just chuckle.
I would.
And then he nods like, yeah, that was a good one.
Yep. That's all you can do sometimes.
Hillbilly Billy. Yep. So yeah, we'll catch you guys next time.
But until then, Use your head.
No.
Duh.